Hi, my name is Irvin Muchnick. I want to thank the Boulder Bookstore for giving me this opportunity to tell its customers a little bit about my new book, Underwater, The Greed-Soaked Tale of Sexual Abuse in USA Swimming and Around the Globe, which is being published in September 2024 by ECW Press, distributed by Simon & Schuster. It comes out just as we've all finished enjoying the Paris Olympics and being thrilled by the exploits of American athletes there, including the swimmers. Swimming is one of the marquee sports of the Summer Olympics, of course. It's also, even though a lot of people know about the sexual abuse scandals in USA Gymnastics with Dr. Larry Nassar, the problem of sexual abuse is numerically worse in swimming, inevitably, just because swimming has a larger participation pool than gymnastics. Up to 500,000 American kids are in the after-school practices and the year-round weekend meets that are kind of a staple of Americana. So what I've done for the last dozen years is investigated the tragic and outrageous, scandalous story of widespread abuse and cover-ups in swimming. I've had access to thousands of pages of internal documents that were subpoenaed by the FBI. I've interviewed scores of victims and many people inside the sport, most of whom don't want their names to be used, who can tell us more about the dynamics of abuse and cover-up and what needs to be done about this going forward. Now, earlier this year, there was a little publicized Congressional Commission report that had what I think were very good recommendations for the first fundamental reforms of the American youth sports system. The first fundamental reforms of the American youth sports system in nearly half a century to bifurcate the programs involving elite athletes under the supervision of the Olympic Committee and its national sport governing bodies, separating those from grassroots programs at the local level, where 90+% of the kids participating are doing it for an extracurricular activity and for the nourishment of a life skill, not for the pursuit of scholarships, Olympic medals, glory, and riches. I think this would go a long way toward ensuring the physical and emotional safety of young athletes in a way that we're neglecting right now. I'm going to be in Colorado for a week in September doing a media and bookstore tour. The reason being, of course, that Colorado is a capital of all this. Colorado Springs is the headquarters of the Olympic Committee and of USA Swimming. Denver is the headquarters of a new agency, which the Congressional Commission report excoriates as a brutal failure, and most people share that view. It's an entity called the U.S. Center for Safe Sport that putatively investigates and adjudicates claims of abuse by coaches. But they have a terrible backlog, and they have funding from the Olympic entities, which skews their orientation. And the Congressional Commission report, I think quite rightly, calls for the Center for Safe Sport to become a federal agency funded by the government, which would be the first step toward having the kind of national sports ministry that almost every peer country has, but that has eluded us in the United States, where we rely on this hodgepodge of 501c3 nonprofits like USA Swimming that are under the aegis of the Olympic Committee. I think that would be a really important step toward cleaning up our act in this important area. Now, I was a conventional sports writer when I started out. I decided early on in my career that my calling was to be a muckraker. a person who tells the stories behind the scenes, some of them very dark, about what really goes on in our popular sports entertainments. I wrote a couple of books about the professional wrestling industry. I wrote 2 books about the public health harm of the sport of football, one on the very familiar subject of traumatic brain injuries, but another one last year called Without Helmets or Shoulder Pads, The American Way of Death in Football Conditioning, that discussed how a number of kids every year, and it's happened again this year, drop dead at the high school level and below without even having trauma from a game, but just from the over-the-top dangerous conditioning regimes that are imposed by out-of-control coaches. So I see underwater to be very much in that same strain, but now the public health issue that I'm focusing on is the way in which the enhanced opportunities for young females, thanks to Title IX from 1972, has perversely enlarged the space for these same young females to be abused on a systematic basis, because our sports system is not taking care of them and is not holding to account the people who prey on them. Although I don't think my book is heavy on salacious stories, you will find them, and you'll find them, some of them involving some of the most iconic names in the sport of swimming. And I hope it helps bring about change. Now, at my website, concussioninc.net, that's CONCUSSION.net, you'll see a lot of background on the book. You can find an excerpt from the prologue, which was published a few months ago at Salon, where I'm a contributing writer. I talk about how I got into this particular subject more than a decade ago, and it involved a horrible scenario at the swim team in California of my own daughter, who thankfully was not herself a victim, but we did see at close range something bad that happened that I quickly realized was the local precinct of a broad national and even international problem. And when I began investigating it more closely, I could see that swimming's so-called safe sport program was a sham. There were cover-ups. There was insurance fraud that has been investigated by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. And there are a lot of ugly stories to contemplate, but most of all, to figure out a way to change moving forward. Also at my website, you'll see an opinion essay in the Chicago Tribune from a few months ago, and more recently, another opinion piece in the Colorado Springs Gazette that discussed local Colorado angles, and not just the swimming and Olympic entities that are headquartered in this state, but even some stories from the swim teams here that got brushed under the rug, unfortunately and outrageously. So that's about it. I hope you will consider buying and reading Underwater, and thank you for your attention.